What's going on, everybody? David here, back with another video. So today we're going to take a look at Nancy Pelosi's press conference yesterday, and she brought up some pretty good information as far as I've been wanting to know this. Like, what are they talking about in the negotiating room? They're saying they're far apart on certain things. What are they far apart on? So she brought up some of those things, not everything. She brought up the things that are more value oriented and why they're different as far as the money that the Democrats want compared to the money that the Republicans want. So I thought it was pretty interesting just to see that. But first thing I want to ask of you guys before we get started with the video, please hit that like button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And also please subscribe if you're new to the channel. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at this chart. So let's bring it up. So here's the chart that Nancy Pelosi brought out in her press conference. And I thought it was pretty interesting. There's some stuff on here that I think now we know kind of what they're looking at. Now, she didn't bring out everything. She's just bringing out stuff that she sees as value differences. And we talked about the whole values thing when it came down to it's kind of hard for you to negotiate your values, right? So if there's something costs a certain amount of money and you really value it, then you're willing to pay that amount of money. But if you don't value it, then you don't really see a need to pay that money. So she's talking about these issues here. And so let's go ahead and look at them from the top down. And so the first thing is food assistance. So she's talking about the Democrats. They want about 60 billion plus. And the GOP, they're looking at about 250,000. Now, Stephen Mnuchin did mention this. And this is based on what Nancy Pelosi is putting together. But Stephen Mnuchin did say that they came in low when it came to the food assistance, and they're willing to work up higher than that 250,000. So that's good. So the food assistance is going to go to kids. It's also going to go to just, the SNAP program and a variety of different things. But ultimately, we're in a situation right now where we see food banks, we see lines that are hours and hours long, people trying to get food to feed their family. So we know that there's a big problem when it comes to that. Another thing that she was looking at is the anti-eviction and rent assistance. So right now, the Republicans, there's nothing. So we saw the executive order, and that's for assistance. That's not for any type of assistance as far as financial assistance. It's just they're looking at the programs that they already have in place, and they're going to try to keep people from getting evicted by using those programs. So there's nothing new there. And so the Democrats right now, they're looking at $100 billion for the rental assistance and the eviction. I don't know if they want to push the eviction moratorium. I think they're still trying to push that. And so instead of doing the assistance that the Republicans are doing right now with the executive order, they want to do the moratorium again and then provide some type of funding. So if you're in a situation where you get the eviction moratorium, but you have to pay it in the end, well, that's going to hurt you. If you're paying $1,000 a month and you have 3 months where you don't have to pay rent, but then at the end of that third month, you have to pay all the rent. So that's going to be $3,000 there. Plus you're going to have to pay rent the following month. So having some type of assistance is what the Democrats are trying to work toward. Next thing here, testing and tracing. This is huge, right? This is a no-brainer to me. So 75 billion, whatever it takes, that's the way I see it when it comes to testing and tracing, because that's helping all of us. So in my mind, there's not a person on this earth that should be penny pinching when it comes to testing and tracing, because we're trying to slow the spread. We're trying to get to a point where we get to a vaccine. But if we can slow the spread, then we can go back to normal activity until the vaccine is available for us. So they want 75 billion. The Democrats, that's what they're asking for right now. The GOP is asking for 16 billion. So safe schools. Now the Democrats have come up on this number. Now you have to understand the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act was approved May 15th. And so things have changed, obviously. We thought that we'd be in a much better place right now, but we had the spike. And so we had the spike in July or late June and July. And even right now, there's some states that are spiking. And so the price went up. And so that's what she's saying here, 300 billion. It wasn't that before, but now it's 300 billion. I believe it was 100 billion in the HEROES Act. And the GOP right now, the Republicans want 105 billion. For that. So those are some of the differences. Now, the reason that she brought these up is because these are value issues. These are when you look at this kind of stuff, I think we can all agree that money should be going toward all of these different programs. And and food assistance included, because there are a lot of people who are unemployed right now who never thought they'd ever be in a food line. And they've said that before. They never thought they'd ever be in a situation where they're in a food line, but they're in a food line now because they don't have a job and they're struggling to put food on the table. So when you're looking at all these things, this is where they're really far apart, and this is where they need to bring this in closer. So I thought that was very interesting that she brought this up. It gives us a little more insight when it comes to what's going on in the negotiations and what they agree on and what they don't agree on. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is show you a clip, and then we'll talk about it on the other end.
Madam Speaker, I want to talk to you about your conversation that you had with Mnuchin yesterday. And he actually came out and said that what you're depicting is not accurate, an accurate reflection of that conversation. And then he also said Democrats have no interest in negotiating. Your reaction?
No, you know what? I think something was wrong with his statement, because Chuck and I said, well, I said, speaking for Chuck and for me, that until they came down $1 trillion, we said we go up $1 trillion, and that we could meet in the middle. When they're ready to do that, we'll sit down. But we're not inching away from their meager piecemeal proposal with the idea that the press says, why can't you come to agreement? Because we are miles apart in our values. And so what he said was strange, because what he said was exactly what Chuck and I said in our statement. We said $2 trillion, and then we can sit down at the table. Then he said, that's not what she said. She said $2 trillion or we can't sit down at the table. Didn't you think that that was strange?
When's your next conversation with him?
I don't know. When they come in with $2 trillion. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I want to talk about what happened there. So basically, you have to look at this whole situation, right? So we know that President Trump signed the executive order. And then from that point, we started to see Stephen Mnuchin, Larry Kudlow. We started seeing different people from the White House getting on TV and saying that the Democrats didn't want to negotiate. The president saying that the Democrats didn't want to negotiate. And so it's interesting to see that they're out there. They're out there all over the place trying to convince the public that the Democrats don't want to do anything for the people. So the way that I'm looking at this, the way that I see this, I think the White House is seeing that the memoranda that were signed, they're basically not going to work. And so what they want to do at this point is they want to get a negotiation going, because they don't want to have to go through the payroll deferrals and the enhanced unemployment that's only going to last 4 to 5 weeks. They don't want to go through all this stuff. So they want to be able to get a negotiation done. So basically, the executive order kind of put them in a situation where now there's more urgency on their part to get things resolved with a negotiation, so they don't have to deal with the actual executive order. So I think it's interesting. It backfired on them in a way. And so that's why Stephen Mnuchin's calling up Nancy Pelosi and saying, hey, we want to work out a deal. We want to negotiate. So that's kind of where they are right now. And the Democrats understand that. Nancy Pelosi understands that. She's looking at the executive order and she's saying, you know what? This isn't going to go anywhere. This is going to be worse. And I've talked about this before, the whole cheap is expensive thing. Just think about what's happening right now. You're trying to go the cheap route, and now you're trying to come back to the table to negotiate. And so you're going to have to pay for, if these things are enacted, you're going to have to pay for some of this stuff. Our money's going to come from somewhere, right? If the payroll tax deferral starts going, that money's either going to come from Social Security or they're going to have to pull it from the general fund. But money will be, they're going to need to bring some money in for that. The enhanced unemployment, the same thing. If the enhanced unemployment starts, it's going to start back from August 1st. So there could be a situation where that $44 billion gets spent. So that's going to be more money that's taken out. So you're trying to be cheap, but now you're still trying to negotiate a bigger bill. So it's interesting. Like I said, when it comes down to it, sometimes you just need to go with, it looks like they jumped the gun with the executive order. I think it was just more of a frustration thing, and maybe they thought, we'll call their bluff. We'll do this, and then they'll come to the table. But it's not working. It's actually backfiring on them. And now you see them running to try to get to the table with the Democrats and try to work out a deal. I mean, by you hearing Stephen Mnuchin say that he's willing to come up on the number from 1 trillion up, that should tell you all you need to know when it comes down to it, when it comes to like this stimulus package in the future. So let's go ahead and continue.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Can you just say, you've outlined the differences here.
Well, these are just some.
Some of
Par
the
example, because it shows the difference in values.
You've outlined the differences, some of the differences. You've talked about how you believe you are on just different pages in terms of your values. What do you gain at this point? Is there anything that you gain by waiting? And do you feel that even a half a loaf in this situation, something to stem the crisis, would be better than
Perhaps you don't
nothing?
understand nothing. 250. This is not half a loaf. This is not even being in the same room. Boardroom table, kitchen table. So I appreciate the goodness that you asked that question, but perhaps you mistook them for somebody who gave a damn. That isn't the case. So this is very far apart, and unless they see the reality of what it means in the lives of the American people, what good is it for us to agree to something that has no relationship to meeting the needs of the American people?
All right, so you saw that she got a little upset there when it came to that question. I think it was a good question though. Like how long are we going to wait? Like when is too much when it comes to waiting? And so I mean, Nancy Pelosi is pretty much just saying, look, this is not half a loaf. We're not talking about meat. This is not even meeting halfway. If someone is offering 250,000 and on your side you're offering 60 billion, yeah, there's a large gap there. The thing that I look at and the thing that really bothers me when it comes to negotiating this whole negotiation is the fact that a lot of these things, vast majority of these things, and you just cut out the pork, the stuff that, just goes to certain projects, but the vast majority of this money is going back to the people. And so the fact that we're arguing, you have the White House and you have the Republican senators and the Democrats, and the fact that we're arguing over money that should be going to the people, investing money into the people, it amazes me. So it's really frustrating to hear this. And let me give you this example. So let's say you're on your hospital bed and you have a life-threatening illness and you need surgery, and you have two doctors there. And one doctor tells you, we can do this surgery. It's not going to be as good as the other one, but this surgery is going to cost $100,000. The other surgery is going to cost $300,000. But that surgery is much better. And you're in a situation right now where you're thinking to yourself, well, I can't afford either one. And so what do I do? If I was in that situation, I would be looking at, give me the $300,000. I'll figure out how to pay for it later. But I want the best that I can get when it comes to this whole situation. I'm in a crisis right now. I'm on a hospital bed. I just want to be better. And so that's where we are right now. We're in a situation where we're in a crisis and we're arguing about how much money we should invest in the people, how much of their money we should invest in the people, because that's what it comes down to. It just like I say, it's your money. It's not the government's money. We've been paying taxes forever, and now we're in a situation where we could really use some of that money. We can really use some of that money coming back to protect us and to provide for us, because we've invested so much in the government before, and we have the government looking at us saying, well, you know what? We don't want to spend this much money. And understand this as well. We're in a deficit right now, not because of the people, but because of the politicians. So when they start coming out and saying, well, we can't afford this, we can't afford this, we can't afford this because of you, not because of us. So the fact that we're in a situation that we're in right now, it's not our fault. It's your fault. And so when it comes down to it, that money should be sent to the American people, invested in the American people. We shouldn't be looking at numbers like she's showing here, where food assistance is 250,000. On the other side, it's 60 billion. Guess what? There are a lot of people starving right now. A lot of people that didn't think that they would ever be in a situation like that they're in right now. They're in that situation because they lost their job, and now they're seeing, what, you know what? I want some of all that money that I was paying taxes on. I want some of that money back. And they deserve it. They deserve it. So the fact that we're trying to nickel and dime people, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's unfortunate. I'm sad to see that our government is really looking at this that way, where it's like, oh, you know what, we can't give them that much. You know, we can't, like Stephen Mnuchin was saying a couple of days ago, yeah, we're not willing to spend that much money and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't your money. This is the people's money. And you're talking about you're not willing to spend that, and you're getting all upset. Mark Meadows slamming his hand on the table in negotiations because he's upset about money that's being spent or money that's going back to the people. So that's my video for today, but I want to know what you guys think. So down below, let me know what you guys think about the press conference. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.